Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare.
All right, thanks, Sam. All right, well, I hope you all had a Merry Christmas and ready for a good new year. I love seeing a bunch of monks in Christmas hats, sending out Christmas cards and stuff. So no worries about the names and labels. It's just celebrate the time of year. Yeah, Laura got a good card from one of the monks there. All the dancing Santa or something. Outfit. Yeah. All right. Well, we are in this section here of setting up a meditation practice, how one goes to meditate in different methods. And last week, I think, did a pretty good job of explaining some of the rituals around setting up a nice session and understand it's a skillful method, not required. We can sit down and meditate. I can sit here and I meditate. But there's a very different experience if I clean the room, set up an altar, make offerings, do it methodically, and visualize the Buddhas being present, set this motivation to be a benefit to all, and, go through these elaborate steps. Then you're ready to meditate. The mind's in a very different spot and very nurtured and ripened in a particular way. And so, as we talked about last week, we have recorded every single day except Sundays, just a guided practice, doing a streamlined version of this, actually. What we do online is really streamlined. In the book here, there's a very elaborate explanation of, visualizing the Buddhas and, just the visualization of oneself and all other beings and so forth. So he really unpacks it in the great detail that one would learn if you're in a monastery or, you have this opportunity to go do Lam Rim type retreats and practices. And I encourage people to try it out sometime. I mean, when I was a monk, obviously I would have some time to do that. And if I'd go away for some retreat, or every now and then I'll get a shot. And, but basically you could spend 45 minutes preparing to meditate, so it takes a little while. And then the meditation session, and then the dedication, the closing. But as I said, if you do ever get like some time to just go through that and unpack it. Venerable Tubden Children, she has probably still available, guided meditations on the Lam Rim. And, one of them is the sort of refuge, just the visualization of taking refuge prior to meditating. And yeah, I think it's about 35 minutes or 40, but it's so like, wow, by the time you get there, it's pretty sweet. So in this, I just said, go ahead, read through it if you had any questions, because they'll take you through 7 limb practice, purification. By the time you meditate, you've purified, cleansed, you're really ripened. And then the meditation, and then the dedication and so forth at the end. So that's the complete practice. And again, in our lifestyles, it can be pretty difficult to make that kind of time. If you got half hour to meditate, it's going to be hard to have 45 minutes to prepare to meditate. But if you have the time and can create a space or a day, and really rich practice, very, very nurturing. So let me just check in to see if anyone did go through and read those and had any questions before we dive into it a little bit. Everybody was studious, studied every point. Okay. Well, the thing I did want to touch on, which is going to get back into this method of how we really embody the Dharma. the stages of the path to enlightenment, the Lam Rim teachings, literally guide you on every step of the path, every point to contemplate, everything along the way to full enlightenment. From, even how you set up your altar, right, to how you sit, to so forth. And the method that they use is an analytical method of the three wisdoms that we've talked about. We learn, we hear the teaching, first wisdom, meditate on the teaching, really contemplate it, analyze it, see if it holds up. And then a little bit of realization, like, okay, this is what I'm getting. Then we stabilize that and we meditate on that. So it goes from a teaching to a contemplation, a meditation, and a stabilization. And this is something that we would do ongoing. So I'm just going to bring up the text where His Holiness points out this piece here. And then we might get to mind, body, and rebirth. Wouldn't that be exciting? Yeah, a lot of elaboration on even receiving blessings, gaining realizations, or relationships that you can develop. And, how we just use our mind and develop conditions. Beautiful, beautiful stuff here. Thought I had it all queued up, but I do have it highlighted. See a lot of content. Yeah, even what to do in between sessions. And so we'll get to some of that. Wow. We're skipping a lot. There we go. So when you were, let's say, going through a Lam Rim topic, for example, well, I immediately go to death, but that's not the perkiest one. That's I have a few samples. Let me stop sharing that one. Come back. This will give you, I think, a nice view if I can pull it up. All right. So, for example, understanding Buddha's view, if you get a teaching on the mind is the source of happiness and pain, true or not? So you would take some little time, you'd sit, stabilize the mind, and then bring to mind points like this, a disturbing situation in your life. You're going to unpack it. You're going to say, is my pain from the event or my mind? Where's the pain? And you can go through like these 4 points that they have up on the screen and examine, what am I finding from that? What am I getting from that? And then just, well, do I find something where it doesn't work? Is that true or not true? And at some point you get, well, this makes sense. Then we stabilize that. There's, these views, transforming agents. There's one here for like the nature of the mind. I'm trying to get to a particular one that I like a lot. So you can see how rather than just getting the teaching on the Four Noble Truths or something, we would take some time to really unpack it deeply, attack it, see if it holds up, analyze it, tear it apart. This one in particular is one we use a lot as well, which is the 3 marks of existence. It's called 3 characteristics here. So according to Buddhism, everything exists in these 3 ways. These are just 3 marks of existence. Things are impermanent. The conditions of samsara are always unsatisfactory, right? Cannot give you any lasting happiness. It's always going to fall apart. And the selflessness that we grab onto as a sense of an independent self doesn't exist. So if that's true, that has some big implications. For example, Buddhism says that all of our mental, emotional afflictions are due to misperception. I misunderstand reality. misunderstand myself. So those three things are the way things exist. That's reality. Three. I had four fingers, right? Three. So is there any time in my life where I have a mental or emotional affliction that accords with how things exist? Or is always my mental emotional affliction trying to make something permanent that's not permanent, trying to find happiness in something you can't give it, or identifying with the way that I exist in a way I don't? And for a couple decades, I've never found an instant of a mental and emotional affliction I've had where it accorded with reality. Like I can always trace it back. Oh, I was trying to make this permanent. It's not. You know, I didn't want this to change. It did. You know, I'm really identified with a certain personality aspect of myself, right? That's not how I exist. You know, I'm changing moment to moment. I was really thinking this or that thing was going to give me, you know, this well-being I've been seeking. And then trying to make things permanent that aren't permanent, a lot of suffering. And that includes the plans for the day, right? This is the way I want it. This is, you know, going to make that happen. I don't want my job to change. I don't want my relationship to change. I don't, you know, trying to find stability and instability, right? That's a painful way to live. But when I know that everything's changing all the time, well, I'm not going to get all hung up when things change. We had Laura's sons over for Christmas. Yeah, they grew up here in Carbondale. Man, you wouldn't believe the hustle and bustle of Carbondale these days. Not like it used to be. Whoa, you know. And, you know, it's like, which, you know, I'm from LA thinking, yeah, hustle and bustle of Carbondale is pretty brutal. But, you know, relative. You know, but, you know, things change, right? And how much suffering we don't want them to change, you know. So my body changes, you know. Yeah, it's a whole thing. So if we take some time, for example, then to, well, let's see if this is true. Do all things exist in that way? Is there anything that's permanent? And then you would, you know, work through this transient nature of everything. Is there anything out there that can give you the lasting happiness you seek, or is there always some unsatisfactoriness to it? You go point by point and you try to take that apart. Is there an independent self, John, here that exists independently, that, you know, goes through day to day? And then you go through that and see if you can find that. You probably wouldn't be looking for John. I would, but yeah. So you just be looking, you know, what part of me is not changing? That is a sense of self that goes day to day. Can you find it? And so you can see that if you would do this frequently, you're going to start remembering how things actually exist based on what you're finding. But you have to find it. You know, somebody telling you, there's no authority here. The authority is you. You're going, found that thing that's permanent. Found that thing that's giving me happiness. It's called coffee. Except then I don't have it, then it's not so happy. Yeah. So you start, you know, poking at things. What is it? And then when you get some sense of, yeah, and then we rest there single pointedly and let that soak in. So 3 wisdoms: hearing a teaching, contemplating a teaching, meditating on a teaching. And so Lam Rim will take you through every topic of mind, of you know, rebirth, of all these stages of the path. Death is certain, time of death uncertain. The time of death, only Dharma can help you. Basically, how you lived will be what helped you. No friends, family, money, all the stuff we stress over, not going to help you at that point. You know, so you go through these points of 9-point meditation on death. And I'll just show a quick scan, just because it's kind of nice to know. As we go through it, we go through the Lam Rim topics. But these 3 here I highlight so much because it's a direct relationship to happiness and suffering, and how afflictions arise from not living in accordance with reality. And if we get that, wow, that's a, like, as soon as I'm frustrated, afflicted, worried, fearful, I know I'm delusional. Like that's just right there at the source. So this is a really good one to focus on: impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, selflessness. 3 marks of existence. Because if that is true to you, then wow, it's just a different way of living, understanding, yeah, life's messy and it's transient and this body's changing and things happen, and what's going, whether this goes that way or that way is not as important as how I engage with this or that. That's what's going to matter. That it's an inside job ultimately. And just see how much attachment and aversion clings to wanting something to be this way or that way, as though it can provide something it cannot. So, yeah, it's I find somewhat amusing when you look at the topics on Lam Rim and Buddhism. Man, there's nothing fun about it. You're gonna change. You're gonna die. Nothing's gonna bring you happiness. Like, oh, and yet they're the happiest people because they're not caught in the loop of that, and you're liberated to actually recognize everything that's happening as an opportunity, incredible, dependently arising event for us to learn and grow and help and have meaning and purpose. Like, instead of me being the center of the universe trying to arrange it for me to somehow be happy in a way I don't exist and it cannot give, which becomes the prison. So a very different view. So there's actually a lot more joy that arises, but it's kind of dark when you go into it. Yeah. You can still enjoy your cherry pie if you're a Buddhist. You might enjoy it more because it's impermanent, won't last. Let's soak it up. Let's explore the wonder of all the conditions that ripen for that cherry pie. So let me get to the text then. So that's, you'll see all these points. And so as you go through Lam Rim, it's, let's not just read something or think about something. Let's integrate it. One of the kind of, I think, biggest obstacles to Western mind and thinking and education, I think, in general now, is we don't need to know a lot of things because you can pull it up, right? And, think about how many books we read, or, how many, I got this text, or I got that commentary, I got this, or, I read that. Yes, when you go through college, you took this course, you took that course. You might remember 4 or 5 things from that course. You just spent a semester on. But you had a lot of books and you wrote some papers. What if we read one book 100 times instead of 100 books one time? Right? There's a very different knowing that takes place. And so the advice here is to go deeply, go slowly, read it again and again and again, and allow the ripening to take place rather than get too scattered with too many things. Of course, it's useful to know these other things and to find the balance in it all. But at some point you say, okay, like for me, I've been on one text for 7 years, marginal at best. I told my teacher a couple of years ago, I'm going to spend the next year on that and I'll move on to those other things you gave me. No, I'm still here. So, but then you get to work with it really deeply, and still read some other things and study some stuff, but if you get something that is just that meat, it's well, vegetarian meat that you really want to get into. This is this deep process of learning, contemplating, meditating, three wisdoms. Back to the point he's making. This is His Holiness speaking. When you reach a conclusion through your reflection or a strong understanding of the topic arises in your mind, then cease the analytical meditation, and with stabilizing meditation, focus your mind one-pointedly on the meaning you discovered or the experience you gained. Employing both analytical and stabilizing meditation to the topics in this way is important for gaining and sustaining an understanding of the path. This is really skillful method of combining the concentration with the analytical. And it doesn't need to be a big, elaborate process, right? We can take a little time. Those of you who do the morning meditation with me, we take some time. We look at rare and precious human birth, and we kind of bring up, how this is valuable in some way, and sit with that for a little bit, think about it, bring it into your day. So even 10 minutes, taking a topic, the point is to really let it saturate your mind and gain some realization that you feel authentic about. Because blind faith is just not going to help anyone on any point here. It really needs to be, okay, let me dig in. Let me see if this is true. Because ultimately, the Buddha is, you know yourself, you know the truth, we're free. And all this is just from misunderstanding. So if that's the basis, wow, let's see, let's test, let's check. Let me pause there, see if anyone has any thoughts or questions. And these big ambitions to get through all this and go right to mind and rebirth. May not get there. Okay, quiet bunch tonight. So the other points just in this section, and again, this is a very elaborate section. I'll just skim through because there's a couple things I thought might be worth just lightly touching upon. And again, on your own, you'll be able to just ask questions. This is just, a good point about these Lam Rim topics. And, they're going to mean different things at different times, going to be very interrelated. So everything we've been doing now is preparing to go through all those topics. I wanted to get to breaks between sessions. This is, I think, really important to tap into. Is so easy to think of my Buddhist practice as my sitting, my meditation, my intention saying or prayers or whatever it is I do, and maybe some evening prayers. And then there's this whole space in between that, which is where we live. And so the advice here is there's lots of things that are going to affect every aspect of your life, and they're going to take place in that time. So there's lots of good advice here, even about food, about alcohol, substances, and things like that aren't going to help you very much. Certain, being just how much you eat, is going to make a difference. When I was a monk, I didn't eat after midday, and it was, I guess they were doing intermittent fasting way before it was cool, right? And what I found is, I didn't have to digest at night. I woke up light. I was fresh with my meditation. It was just pretty healthy overall. And so, things like that about not eating too much and certain foods might be, affecting you one way or another. Your activities during the day. The more that I'm engaged in my day mindfully and with virtue, well, guess what's going to happen to my meditation? It's going to be a lot clearer, easier. If I'm doing harmful things, caught up in resentments, engaging with the hooks of the 8 worldly concerns, then my meditation is going to struggle. So how I live my life when I'm not in meditation affects the meditation. The meditation is going to, inform how I engage in my life. But the key is to maintain a connection and recognize at some point there may not need to be a huge difference between a formal practice and living life. Like, this is all an opportunity, to learn, to understand, to explore, and to cultivate this path. And so one of the methods that we use a lot is focusing the meditation, since most people have pretty full lives. You don't get to just, spend all day hanging out in front of the altar, taking a few mindful walks in between. That if you're going to meditate, really sharpen the faculties of the mind. Really focus on shamatha, really focus on getting mindful, attentive. And then set an intention in that day. Here's my practice for the day. And so that my daily life becomes my vipassana, my insight practice, how I'm engaging with you. How am I attending to you? What am I learning from these experiences? Where's the impermanence? Am I noticing those 3 marks of existence, Sean? And then I'm combining shamatha with vipassana, but in a useful way because I'm living it. And then in the evening, you bring it together with the meditation of what you learned from your vipassana, from your observations of that day, with a little meditation at the end. And it's a real nice setup. And then, but the idea is to have one topic that you really work with for a while. And, 3 marks of existence. It's just a go-to because, a couple of decades haven't found and when you do it that way, we can have valuable lessons that pop up for a moment. But that's very different than a long-term, deep understanding of how you experience life. Epiphanies don't last long. They turn into duh-epiphanies. Like, duh, how many times do I gotta learn that again, right? That makes sense. I've had a lot of those duh-epiphanies, learn that then, learn that then, and here I am again. But methodically, this is a way of really entrenching it in a way that makes sense to you, in a way that is meaningful and supportive, and bringing it to mind. So in between sessions is really where we get to do our work. I kind of think of the formal morning practice as putting gas in the tank, Now I'm going to go get into this journey, lacing up your shoes. Let's see if there's something else in that little section. Yeah, food. Oh, this sounds good. Let's do that. I didn't scan this. Imagine if we did this before we ate. Recite before eating and contemplating while eating. I contemplate all the causes and conditions and kindness of others by which I have received this food. I contemplate my own practice, constantly trying to improve it. I contemplate my mind, cautiously guarding it from wrongdoing, greed, and other defilements. I contemplate this food, treating it as wondrous medicine to nourish my body. Just take a little time before you eat to think about all the conditions that ripen so we could have this meal, and how many lives are involved to have this meal, how it nurtures us, how, valuable this is. Instead of just grabbing a handful of French fries. I contemplate the aim of Buddhahood, accepting and consuming this food in order to accomplish it. That I'm going to use this nourishment to engage in this path. So I can be of ultimate benefit to others. You know, a lot of indigenous traditions have really rich prayers around that as well. And typically Tibetans will offer it to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and so forth before they eat it. But so you can see the richness that we can bring into daily activities such as eating, such as walking, such as writing a check. Think about how many ripples this is having in the world. These days, tipping is like on everything, right? And it's so easy to just go, well, what's the 20% or whatever, or hey, I hope this really helps you. I hope if you're in school, this is helping you. If you're raising kids, this helps with that. Do the tip. What a different thing to personalize that's going somewhere. These people are working, really hard. And what is their life like? Put a little something in there. And that action's very different then. There's so much we do on autopilot. And it may not even, just it's an obligation versus an opportunity. So taking those moments, even before you get in the car or before you start the car, actually, and just, you're about to go out into this roads with all these other people. Let's be safe. Let's be well. Let's be mindful. Let's drive with some care. I'm often grateful I have a car. Yeah. Love it when it starts too, man. There's a little woo-hoo, Yeah. Okay. Good to go. And so throughout the day, we can be ripening our minds with these motivations, intentions, understandings. Because everything that we have, it's because of all these others. The roads we drive on, everything from so many others. And it gets us out of the delusion of center of the universe and realizing the interdependent experience that we're all benefiting from, learning from, contributing to. And the people who lived centuries ago did things that allow us to have what we have today. I mean, even these teachings or the thought that we could have public education or, things that all gave rise to who we are today. So that's ripening the mind with reality. And in doing so, as we recognize that reality in this rare instance that we have arising in this moment in ways that are incredibly wondrous compared to the mass of humanity, path of awakening, teachings, the guidebook, everything. There's some wonder, some awe, and it's independence upon. There's no separate John here that's benefiting. And then it's so much more naturally responsive with compassion, kindness. How do I support this? How do we grow together? And then things like tips or crotchety people, Christmas shopping, struggling, they have compassion, or at the airports, travel. There's a kindness that comes instead of an irritation. People aren't in your way, right? They're here giving you an opportunity to have a life. As we say, we're not stuck in traffic, we are traffic. People aren't in your way, they are the way. And it arises from clarity, not from Pollyanna. Let's look at this clearly. Is there anything you have in your life that's independently you? that you did. That's yours. I haven't found it yet. Not even my body. You know, my parents were very kind. Give me that. So tonight's topic is really about how we ripen the mind in a way that nurtures reality, which then nurtures compassion, loving kindness, which reduces suffering, grasping, resentment, afflictions. And it can start right away when we begin our day. However we set up our room, however we take a little time for meditation. But it's literally a brainwash. I mean, that's what we're doing. We're literally washing the brain from misconceptions and nurturing and growing, giving it the ingredients of awareness and compassion and clarity. And so little things like water bowls up here or Buddhas and, the feelings, can really help support that. Some people much more, I'm a pretty simple person, like more simple things, but when I have the picture there of His Holiness in front of me or my teachers in front of me, it's a very ripened, beautiful thing that ripens my mind. If I set out water bowls and do that nicely and all that, I feel a lot better than if I just leave them upside down, didn't have time to do water bowls, I'll still meditate, I'll still do those things, but there's a richness that gets involved. If I remember before I give the tip to be thoughtful about the tip, it's very different than just, what's the percent? Take that moment. The big issue is that we forget. We can be like floating out the door at 8 a.m., 10 a.m., caught up in just worldly concerns, things you gotta do, stress, worry, fear, people in my way, look at that idiot, turn this way on the road, so forth. Judgments, grasping. So the more that we can, in between those sessions, bring that mind, that vipassana, into our experience, then it becomes a lived experience. And the more that we can then in the evening close down with, a real clarity around the lesson I learned today, and then again and again. Neurons that fire together wire together. I think most people get that. The things you think, say, and do a lot, you don't think, say, and do a lot. I mean, you got tendencies, we have habits, we have conditioning. The other part of that sentence, I didn't hear it till much later, some guy told me, and neurons out of sync don't link. And that's the bigger point. I want all this happiness, peace, and all that, but I'm not doing anything to get it. Neurons out of sync don't link. So if I want to live in reality, if I want to have this view, I want to know this, well, I need to sync. And so that's the opportunity during the day, sync my morning practice with my daily activities, with my evening. And then we have this lived experience. And at some point, you might catch yourself getting frustrated and thinking that doesn't even make sense. Or things that used to frustrate you don't anymore because there's no ground for it to arise. Because maybe we recognize things are impermanent. There's an unsatisfactory nature to this existence, and the thing I'm clinging to as John doesn't exist the way I'm clinging to it. Then there's a baseline, and you're just not a lot of ground for those things to pop up. But all this takes time. It needs to get baked in. It's good to have evenings together, little time to practice, talk, analyze, think, but really make it a practice. If there's anything else here, then we'll pick up the mind and all that next week. You see a lot of richness, a lot of poetry with me. Sleep. I think they're going to tell you it's good for you. Yeah. Making time for the body to rest. Really take good care. They even give you a sleeping posture called the lion position. Yeah, so you can read up on that. It's supposed to be really amazing. I've never done it. So I'm just going to take their word for it. Activities, data activities, we got those. That's not gossip. There's this really good section here on making requests, receiving blessings, gaining realizations. And this has always been something that I've lean into both positively and negatively. It can be pretty easy to want blessings and think these blessings are going to make it all good and not change your life very much. And there's a nice explanation in here of how it doesn't work like that. That we're creating a dependently rising event between holy beings, holy objects, places of worship, blessings, receivings, that our door needs to be open. And what we're doing is gaining some relationship with maybe a good qualified teacher, or the Buddhas, as we visualize them in front of us, and we're kind of opening the door of having a relationship of, from my side, just feeling better when they're in the room, or having seen people who have had certain teachers or have done certain things, and having a sense of aspirational potential. And then what happens as we cultivate merit, as we engage and we nurture and we develop these relationships, then these blessings of that relationship, just like any other relationship we have, will ripen within us. But, if I'm a poor husband, my relationship with my wife's not going to really support any real growth with me. But if I'm, a nurturing, attentive, husband in a relationship, then I can receive a lot from that relationship. So it's much more like that. It's not, here's the magic thing, you've been blessed. It could be like pouring water on a rock. It's not very helpful. And it needs to be authentic, as far as, certain times you imagine things, like imagine a Buddha in front of you, but you kind of think, well, okay. There's, for me, I see my teacher could really, visualize the Buddha, and I saw his life, and I saw other people, and, I say the teachings, they make sense. Well, what if I just held that there's wisdom in front of me, and you work it in a way that makes sense to you, develop a relationship. And then if we think about, people wonder about whether prayer works or doesn't work, or these blessings work. But maybe we're sitting here today because there's a bunch of people that were praying a few centuries ago that the Dharma remain, the teachings stay strong, that they get translated, that they get transmitted. And out of those efforts, here we are today. It's a possibility. Hard to prove. Our prayers might be creating conditions for that. But I think it's pretty reliable to say that things only exists in dependence upon causes. And the more that certain philosophies and attitudes and so forth are maintained, well, then there's potential, right? Cause and results. And so we can be really taking a little time to, in a way that makes sense to you, that you relate to, even just virtuous attitudes, good thoughts, ways of being, teachings that you've seen help other people ripen a type of a relationship. And sometimes you'll get, really direct hits. A lot of people, if they're in the room with Dalai Lama, it's pretty obvious your room was something far beyond anything human. And it doesn't have to be His Holiness. It can be certain people or teachers or teachings. Or you're reading a book on the Dharma, just wow, you get hit. So, and it's just the more that we cultivate these environments, then the more opportunity for that relationship. You'll notice if you go in a cathedral, for example, you have a different mind when you walk into a cathedral, right? Solemn, sweet. I remember hearing some Gregorian chants in the dome right next to the Leaning Tower of Pisa. There's this dome. And this guy would walk out at a certain time, stand in the middle, and send up a little chant, it'd bounce. And man, I mean, whoa. Just spiritually moved, And so these are all supportive environments and conditioning that we can do to fight against a very obsessive, compulsive, busy, worldly mind that is driven by cell phones and distraction and to-do lists. We even have digital to-do lists. Now we got AI to deal with too, right? It's going to make your life easier. That's what they told me when I got a pager. I don't think it worked out that way. Yeah, now you can work all the time. Yeah. And so these are all just, really wonderful antidotes and buffers to ripening the mind. And then it just infuses the practice. And then there's this, much greater potential of not forgetting, of engaging the world more accurately, of having this loving kindness, compassion. It should be a part of who we are. And so it's very methodical. So I do encourage you, have some time with the text to just unpack and, take a look at some of the beauty of those attitudes, motivations, thoughts, aspirations. And like I say, in ours, we have I record every day except Sunday, a shorter version, a little longer version. And even the longer version's very scaled down from this. But it's really nice to go through, purify, cleanse, meditate for a little bit. But the idea is to carry that into our day, the vipassana during the day, that combination, that really makes a difference. All right, so it's about where I think I'm going to wrap up. Anybody have any thoughts, curiosities, comments, interesting Buddhist jokes, and not the one that about the hot dog stand? Got that one too many times.
That's the only one I know.
Yeah, that's the one that comes up. Well, it looks like we're all good.
Actually, just a quick question. Can you clarify? I asked you this last time. What's the definition of Lam Rim?
Lam Rim, stages of the path. Stages of the path. Lam Rim.
And there's how many of those? There's a certain number, right?
No. Different lineages have different Lam Rims, and there's short Lam Rims, long Lam Rims. Shortest, Lam Rim teaching is 3 principal aspects of the path. It's just I can't remember how many verses it Yeah. So, and then there's short, medium, long, and then there's, yeah. It expands and contracts. You'll often, like the 7-point mind training, 7 points, that's unfolds like, whoa. This point has 3 subpoints. That means it's, yeah. So, yeah, so Lam Rim stages of path. And so we'll be here, and this is the Gelugpa tradition, the Gelug stages of the path to enlightenment. But, you'd have a Nyingma, Lam Rim, and so forth. So, but basically, what it does and what's beautiful about it is even if you're Zen or you're Theravadan or wherever, like this does is it says, here's where you are on the path with that practice. Here's where that fits. It's a map. It's a map. At this stage of the path with this motivation, these would be the practices. This stage of the path with these types of motivations. So if you are a Theravadan, you're going to be an Arhat, here's the focus of that scope. And here's what these practices do. If you're a Bodhisattva path, maybe in a Zen or something as well. Here's where these practices come in, 6 perfections and so forth. And so what it does, it takes all the teachings and puts a systematic sort of map, stages of the path, and synthesizes them in a real nice way. Nice view there. And so the first 2 texts we're getting has been total preparation to go into those stages. But we'll go ahead and dedicate the merit that we have cultivated from our time together. Get that text back up. Yeah, a real gift to support each other. I hope everybody's having a good holiday season. This new year is just filled with wonder and opportunity. I feel like it is. Maybe that's because I can breathe. I don't know. I had a bunch of surgeries, 3 of them this month. Minor. But anyway, I can breathe and see. It's pretty cool. The breathing especially. It's like a whole thing.
Sound better.
People keep telling me, I must have sounded terrible. Yeah, I'm not sure how to take that. Yeah, you really sounded like, yeah, to talk effortlessly. It's kind of nice. All right, so let's just take a moment to recognize that collectively we have gathered together because we seek taking meaning and purpose from this rare and precious life that we have. We seek to understand ourselves, our experience. We seek to eliminate suffering, cultivate joy. We seek to be a benefit. We seek a path of understanding and freedom. We aspire, have motivations to be a benefit to all. And within all that is an incredible, vast amount of merit and wisdom. Let us collectively dedicate all of our merit and wisdom for the benefit of all sentient beings, that they may one day also be free of suffering, and for our own continued spiritual growth, that we may find a way to apply these 3 wisdoms of learning, contemplating, meditating on the ultimate truth, the nature of existence in ourselves, in ways that are meaningful and practical, so that we can be of ultimate benefit to ourselves and others. And if you care to, recite the dedication. By this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.